Namaste to you, my dear true friends. Let's go ahead and lock into our witnessing spiritual state of consciousness. So I don't know how to do that. Oh, how do you do that? Just take the whole thing in. No dilation, no constriction, no resistance, no holding back. Be completely here in this event right now, with nothing else distracting you, nothing else pulling you away, not judging whether it's good or bad, not qualifying the experience. Just be here fully. The whole thing, not you the person, not you the body. This whole thing. Be that, be here. Be I am. Be that I am. Today, my little cherub monkeys, we're gonna jump into a book review, Integral Life Practice, a 21st Century Blueprint for Physical Health, Emotional Balance, Mental Clarity, and Spiritual Awakening. This is from 2008. It's authored by Ken Wilber, Terry Patton, Adam Leonard, and Marco Morelli. So we might say, rather than this being a Ken Wilber book, it's a book that he meta-authored, he says in the intro. And I kind of like that. As you read the book, it's very much in his style, and there's a couple things that feel not Wilber-y about it. Some of it, I think, kind of extrapolates a little bit on the integral theory or offers another point of view that's integral in nature, but it kind of feels not like the way that Ken Wilber usually would describe or indicate things. So that's kind of actually exciting about it. It's kind of like as you watch all these YouTube channels by other individuals or groups that are interpreting integral theory and Ken Wilber's work, you'll run into the same thing where certain things are allowed in, certain things aren't allowed in. There's this maybe like a more of a masculine or feminine, type drive to what's being expressed. Maybe there's it's coming more from a businessy perspective or a self-help or a spiritual or a religious or a new age or an atheist. All these kind of perspectives slightly alter kind of your particular stance and the way that you appreciate or care about integral theory. This is not a bug. Integral theory is meant to bridge all these different ways of knowing, ways of being. And specifically on our show, the people that I am and the people that I interact with are coming from all different walks of life, different philosophies, different religious systems or anti-religious systems, different political beliefs. That's on purpose, because the point here is the more integral you are as like a type or as a level, the more you're not trying to ban or cancel everything that differs from you. You're trying to really understand why everyone's different and how we can take the best parts of everyone's perspective and integrate them into our own collective and our own individuality. Some of these perspectives, even if they do seem very disagreeable to us, those might represent shadow or a blind spot within us. They might just be totally wrong from our own perspective. That's still fine. You can just say, I don't agree with that, I don't like that, that's wrong. But then you are forced to kind of reconcile with now, how do you explain why this other person completely, totally buys into it? Maybe they're foolish. Maybe they don't have research skills. Maybe they have a personality disorder. Maybe, this or that. They learned the wrong thing. They have the wrong habits. They don't have discipline, mental discipline. But one of the real big contentions of this integral theory is that everybody's kind of right, and everybody's certainly right from their own perspective. And as we try to understand the all, everything that is, everything that could be, we have to really get why people understand what they think instead of just judging who's right and wrong from our own flawed perspective. So we're just trying to bring in this information and get really cozy with it. Now, integral life practice, what is that? So this is actually kind of clutch. Ken Wilber is generally not a spiritual teacher. That's a thing that you might get confused about early on. His point isn't to enlighten everybody or get everybody to the top level of consciousness. He's a philosopher and a map maker, a system builder. He offers this theory, this map of reality that contains enlightenment as just a thing that you can be aware of or you can practice, and there's a map to get to there. That's what it is. But he's not the person who is the guru that teaches you how to do that. That's not his goal. That's not his aim. And I think that if you're teal meme, turquoise meme, if that's kind of where you live and you're just into this metamodernism, integral theory thing, I would encourage you to take this perspective more. So, like, I think a lot of people want to jump right into being the guru, the teacher. Now that I know this theory stuff, this knowledge stuff, now I'm the person that's going out into the world to show it to everyone as I know the way. You do know the way, but you have the map, not the territory. You're not at the treasure chest on the map. You are a person who has the map, and you're like, hey, I think there's a treasure here. I have reason to believe in this treasure. That's kind of more what the second tier is about. Third tier, whole different story. In that case, you might or might not be representing integral theory. But integral theory is those middle stages, that stage 7, stage 8, what's emerging in the world right now. To wit, with that in mind, a lot of the question here, a lot of what people ask me, a lot of what my community is concerned with, what do you do with this? How does this change things? How does this build the world better? Now that we're all on the same page, do we start a little army of second tier causes? You know, do we? Well, you see what's happening when we start thinking like that. Well, what do you mean? Do you mean like a religion? Because if we're all going to believe the same thing monolithically and make a hierarchy of ourselves, we're really just doing the red meme, amber meme thing. If we're making a little cult where we worship Ken Wilber and we try to get to the top level, well, we're kind of just doing a magenta red meme cult thing. If we're saying we want to take over the world in the sense of starting a network, like a social network, technology, advancing the human self into the future, now we're kind of doing orange meme science fiction stuff. We're trying to make Starfleet Federation. If we're all about changing the narrative, influencing things towards compassion, benevolent outcomes, banding together on a global level, that's just green meme. So these are all good. There's nothing wrong with any of these. So this is the whole point, right? That all these levels offer fruit. And if you're coming from second tier, yes, do descend to the other levels and infuse that with your second tier, teal, turquoise, integral, holistic energies. That's good. That's good stuff. That's what we're all about. However, when you say, what does teal and turquoise do? It isn't those things, because those are first tier things. Global peace, ending war. That's first tier business. It's resolving first tier. It's ending the first tier game. Second tier now is meta. That's the whole deal. It stands apart. It's this whole thing. I'm not a person. I'm not a member of a thing. Okay, I'm not a movement. I'm reconciling. I'm the whole picture. I'm just a existential philosophy being. I'm just experiencing this. I'm a passenger. I'm an actor. That's the character, particularly of teal. What do you do? That may be all this first tier horizontal stuff, building better society, building bridges, dialogue, influencing, cult, religion. All of that business is good. That's first tier business. But when you talk about second tier business, it's actually this sort of practice. It's this meta practice that's really only applicable to you and how your life and your character and your personality are going to change over time as a result of this knowledge. It's not about prison reform. It's not about the Middle East. It's not about gas prices. It's about how I can become better at communicating, healthier, better at living, more skillful, more wise. That's what the second tier offers us as individuals and as a second tier community. A lot of us, that can be disappointing, that we're wanting it to be this thing that immediately, like, okay, well, we band together. We all get it now. We all get the picture. We're all on the same page. But that's not how second tier works. That's how first tier works. It's not a monolith that challenges and goes after everything else but itself. That's what first tier does. We're about synthesizing and integrating. So the way I can do that is to make myself a better adapter, a more skillful communicator, for lack of a better word, a better person, to be a better person. And a lot of that is getting over our fixations, getting over our psychological issues that we individually have, and moving towards awakening, towards spiritual awakening, recognizing that that exists and we don't know what it is. Particularly, we're trying to figure that out. That's a primary goal. And as we learn of this, as we experience states of consciousness, peak states, transcendental states, we may teach that a little bit. We may bring that into our institutions and our causes and our own life practices. But that's what we're up to. This is what we do. This is so. Yeah, I know it's kind of a bummer, right? Because you want to start this enlightened master army and fix all the world's problems. Well, that is what you're doing, but it's important to realize that you're not capable of that. And that's why everyone who thinks they're capable of that kind of descends into some sort of tyranny or narcissism, or it just doesn't really work the way that you would think. It's the hero's journey results in the hero being defeated and having to reconcile with the fact that the dark wizard is the one who actually has all the power in this situation. And that's why we have to constantly inebriate ourselves with stories of how the hero wins and the nice guy finished first and everything, because it isn't really how it goes a lot of the time in the experience that we actually have. So we're trying to work out the psychology externally by telling stories, by fooling ourselves, instead of like right here, right now, in this moment, reconciling all of this cognitive dissonance so that we can approach the world without that cognitive dissonance, and we can invite and encourage other people to express themselves and to inhabit that as well. So that's my manifesto on second tier. To wit, altitude and aptitude. Altitude is your vertical development, the levels that we talk about. Aptitude, so this is what we're talking about. At every level of consciousness, you're at a certain aptitude. You're so at, like me at red meme. I'm not great at red meme. I'm a little bit insecure. I have trouble asserting myself. I kind of go into a fight or flight response prematurely before I'm actually threatened. And a lot of you can relate to that. Some of you can't at all. But whatever. So that's my red meme. Aptitude is very low. I'm not very good at self-representation. I'm not, I don't take the prize and run, I will often throw myself under the bus. So that is bad aptitude. And so like I say, a pyramid or a ladder, you got to have a stable foundation. You got to really descend into there and clean up there where you have attachment disorders or anything that you might think it's okay to just ignore that and continue to rise, continue to build, continue to make wherever you're at. Maybe it's money, fame, enlightenment. But at the bottom of that, what's actually the person that's guiding that? It's like the cartoon with the two kids in a trench coat sneaking into a movie theater because they stand on each other's shoulder and it makes them tall. They got a big trench coat on. What's underlying this powerful facade that you put out is that hurt child down there, or that abandoned or neglected, or that child who just hasn't really fully come to grips with the intensity of this situation that we're in. So aptitude, it's so revolutionary that integral theory brings up this idea of vertical development, altitudes. Wow, that's so novel, and that's so not in our public discourse, because person A finds it offensive because they're not at the highest level. Person B finds it racist because only privileged people can get to the highest levels, even though, this is a funny thing that I was in a particular band in Seattle. I'm not going to go into a big story, but at one point I indicated to them, I'm like, well, my whole thing is I'm really into like meditation and yoga, and it's really interesting to me. And the leader of the band is like, well, that's all fine and good, but that's just for privileged people. Like, I don't have time for that. I'm not privileged. Well, I mean, when you look at the classical spiritual holy man person, they're a person with like nothing. They're a beggar who like lives in the rain under a tarp. They're like basically a homeless person. So the idea that meditation and enlightenment are just for the privileged is just something only a very deeply privileged person could even like come up with. We're talking about, fully experiencing pain, trauma, grief, loss, lack of materials, anti-materialism, ego death, ego transcendence. So it's like, that's only for privileged people. Well, in a way, I mean, only privileged people are going to have access to that information, or lucky people, But it's just kind of funny the way that I do kind of get what you're saying here. I think of like a yoga class, like a Western yoga class. They're these kind of rich people. They have all their gear. They look really nice. They take really good care of themselves. They have a lot of money. They have time to do stuff like this. That looks kind of privilegey, sure, but that's kind of just dressing up in the clothing of spirituality. That's just kind of attending the workshop, being there for that. But how much does that actually enter that privileged life that you have? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But that's only an outward appearance. You can do, what I always used to love about yoga was that it requires no gear. It's like an athletic activity. You need nothing. You can do it barefoot in the grass. And then it's like, oh, well, you can get these clothes that go with yoga, and you can get these bricks and blankets and mats and all these things that you need to do yoga now. It's like, yeah, when I learned about it, it was some dude in a diaper, like basically that's a racist, but a cloth that's like wrapped around your bottom to cover up your gonads and to provide cushion when you sit on thorns and stones. And that's like, and then your feet are dirty because you're doing it in the soil. That's kind of part of the old school practice, is to really, feel the ground underneath you, being grounded. Altitude is this really new, novel, emergent thing. That's Teal Meme. Teal Meme's all about altitude. But in the more meta-integral, holistic centaur, we're talking more about also obtaining aptitude at each of these vertical stages to get more and more in touch with those chakras within us, if you like, or those developmental potentials, and seeing ourselves as a series of bars, get this one up, get that one up, get this one up. Not just go up, right? Not just go up. That's, whoa, can get shaky, right? With the pyramid, with the ladder. Higher that you climb, more the ladder sways. Also, the temple, the temple's, my body's my temple. My body goes out, where's my mind? It's gone, right? Almost in a way, we can consider the activity. What do I do as second tier? How do I get involved? It starts, certainly, with the self. And so what we're going to talk about in Integral Life Practice is, how can I get my life organized, my activities, what I actually do, think, feel, and do. How do I make that more second tier? How do I check in with how second tier I'm being? This is a quote from the book. Integral life practice starts where all practices start, with inspiration, a yearning to grow, to become all that you can be. Sometimes the choice to practice comes after you've been touched, opened, shaken, or maybe even awakened by something or someone profoundly true. Sometimes the decision to practice is triggered by the heartbreaking lessons of life, the experience of intense suffering, meaninglessness, or pain. Maybe it's the inspiring example of someone living an uncompromised life, or the reading of a book full of mind-blowing insights, or the extraordinary presence of a wise teacher or saintly person. Maybe it's the death of a friend or a loved one. Maybe your conventional life is simply undone because you suddenly see through your own game. Somehow you get a glimpse of a freer, clearer, more authentic, loving, and true existence, and you want to live it. Generally, when I talk about practice on the show, I'm not talking about integral life practice. I'm talking about spiritual practice, which generally is meditation, contemplation, prayer, sangha or social or church type of activities, as well as research, studying, insight practice, gaining awareness of how to do this, finding direction in that sense. So strictly spiritual stuff. And for me, where I really draw the line is, it's got to be meditation at least. Meditation is so central to the whole thing. I might also include psychedelic practices if that is true for you, and it kind of isn't for me. I call it cheating on God. Starting with that quote, and now we'll move into, I'm not going to go through it. Don't worry. I'm not going to go through like everything in the book. This is mostly just my notes on it and what I thought might be interesting to viewers of my channel. I encourage you to read all of these books. I think they're all great and worthwhile, and I hope that you pay your money for them and finance the future of this movement, right? So the first exercise, it's got a lot of exercises ranging from, really important exercises, distilling a lot of knowledge and a lot of practices into one simple thing, a lot of fast practices and a lot of essential practices. So first one is sort of setting our intention, just like you would if you were to go on a psychedelic journey or to attend a retreat. Just set your intention. A 1-minute meditation where you witness yourself asking what your motivation for the practice is. I give my answer in 1 minute. I did a little meditation, just like we started this video, expand out, see the whole thing, and ask yourself maybe why are you interested in this integral theory, what we talk about on Unthink Me? What's your interest here? You can pause the video or, do it on your own. I'm not forcing you to. And I ask myself, okay, I am involved in an integral life practice, inevitably. I say, in answer to this, after kind of meditating on it, I want this to be my life. Integral theory, I want this to be my life. I want it to be my career. I want it to be my identity, who I am. Decreasingly imaginary business, right? Where we do integral theory, whatever that means. And then that made me weep. I started crying, and I thought about how much I love all the people who have been with me in my life, and particularly my ex-partner, and how much she helped me to grow this identity and this desire to be a person who does a spiritual lifestyle and lives a spiritual life, and how I may have let myself down as that person in that context, and moving forward, how I felt disappointment in myself about that as I was, reconciling these things as all that kind of slush was pushing together and the ice was melting and tears were pouring out of me. I was like, this is the motivation. This is why I want to do a practice, an integral life practice. This is why I need this. So it may be a different thing for you. I just wanted to mention that because that was a beautiful moment that I had with this integral life practice book. I wanted to share with you as well. This is the motivation. I got to keep going with this identity. I got to keep being Yoga Adam. I got to keep doing Unthink Me because it's a thing that really works for me, and I want it to work, and I love it. I love it. I'm happy with it. Romantically in love with the universe. That's my motto. And I want to keep it that way. Now, one of the things that really astounded me about this book, and this happens quite a bit with my channel, sometimes I'll just be like coming up with crap that I'm like, this seems right. And then I'll like read a book by Ken Wilber or something about integral theory, and it'll be saying like the same thing. I'm like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. Like, I thought I was off on some tangent. I wasn't really sure about it. And then it's like, yeah, no, this is, at least someone else thinks this. There's this weird sort of confluence with integral theory where it kind of, once you kind of get the basic steps of it, you get the levels, the Aquilolatus chart and everything. Once you kind of get that, it sort of leads you to syntheses that are just sort of inevitable. And so the more time you spend with this model, the more it'll kind of unlock these things that you'll hear a complete stranger that's familiar with some of these ideas talking about something. You'll be like, oh my God, that's like my idea. That's like something I came up with. Like I've been saying for a while now, this was a big insight for me, a big watershed for me. Part of my whole life experience was to realize first, romantically in love with myself. To realize that first, to treat myself like my sweetheart, my lover. And then more recently, as I fell out with my ex Celesta, and I didn't have like a person to put this energy into, I realized that it's much more appropriate now for me to take that romantic energy and put it towards the universe itself, towards the world, to my life, this experience, romantically in love with the universe. And so it's like, that's, I share this with James, and he's just like, oh, that's dangerous, what if it cheats on you, because this is the whole thing. But so this is from the book as well. There's a quote. The adventure of awakening is among the most universal of human dramas. It takes every possible form, and thus it's an utterly creative, unpredictable, and unprogrammable process. The river's twists and whitewater sometimes include passages such as the dark night of the soul, or gates through which no one passes except on their knees. It can be experienced as an ordeal of transformation, a process of blossoming, or as a romance with God. So isn't that interesting? It's confirming that this thing that kind of just came out of my heart is a way that Wilber and other integral theorists just naturally arrive at this idea that there's this sort of lover aspect to it, lover between, various parts of myself and each other. Obviously love with my community, my sangha, my people, obviously that's normal, that's traditional. But love, romantic love with the life experience, with the givingness of that, the sacrifice of that, the allowing acceptance of that, the fearlessness of that, and just the joy and bliss and appreciation and gratitude of that. Now, obviously, when I say things like that, it sounds religious. It sounds like the way that religious people talk about religion. And that's that's the whole point. Like, you don't have to be a member of some group of people in order to feel this way about your life. We will get into the integral life practice, but we're still in the kind of introductory section. There's a cool quote. What post-metaphysical means is that no perspective on reality is merely given to consciousness. Every perspective is enacted. So you do it. Like, it's a big theme in Ayn Rand's writing too. Like, you can have whatever belief you think you have, whatever ism, your nihilism or your communism. But okay, now go out there and act it out. Do it. Does it work? Is that realistic? Are you actually a nihilist? Would you follow through with being a nihilist, or do you still seek comfort and social approval, and that's actually why you're being a nihilist? Interesting. So every perspective is enacted. You have to do something to see something. You have to look to know that it's raining. You have to use a microscope to observe an amoeba. You have to meditate to understand what Zen masters are really talking about. Now, I've noticed Ken Wilber uses this word injunction here. And as I look that word up, I find that the word isn't really used like that. An injunction is like a legal thing, and it can be a scientific term, but what he means by injunction is like, in order to see this, you must do this. In order to understand germ theory, you must have a microscope and look into it, or trust someone who did that, right? In order to understand enlightenment, you must either trust a Zen master or go through what they've gone through to get there and be talented and lucky. So the injunction is that in our culture, it's so common to just dismiss all spirituality, meditative spirituality, all of religion as just kind of garbage, just something that silly people do, old-fashioned, outdated stuff. And this is possible to do if you have not actually followed through with the injunction of, at least for Buddhism, meditation, which I felt challenged by that, and I started practicing that, and I found, wow, this works. This does what they say it does. And so that, converted me from no belief to no other belief, right? Made me see that there is something to this whole spirituality thing. Maybe for you, or maybe for me or someone else, that injunction was taking a really strong psychedelic. Maybe that is what you go, oh, okay, I get why we're saying that the ego is imaginary and that, every moment has a perfection of infinity inside of it. Maybe psychedelics taught you that. It can be kind of lame to dismiss that if you've never tried it. If you have some reason why, health reason or moral reason why you don't think you should do that, that's perfectly fine. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying then, in that case, don't dismiss all this information coming at you about people who have done that stuff. The way integral life practice works is it's essentially a self-monitoring thing where you're trying to take all the primary modules of integral lifestyle and just make sure that you yourself are satisfied with how much work you're doing in each of those and whether each of those is working for you. So the modules are body, mind, spirit, shadow, and other. So let's think about that so body has to do with exercise and nutrition. So to check in with that one, we're going to ask, am I satisfied with my physical health? Am I satisfied with how much exercise I do, how much time I have for that. Am I satisfied with my diet? Are there things I want to change? If yes, then we will schedule and get organized and include on a map under the body module. We will say, okay, I need to stop eating so much sugar, or I need to start integrating more vegetables into my diet, or I need to actually follow through with my gym membership. I need to actually lift 2 times a week for 30 minutes. I'm going to continue playing tennis in this club once a week and see if that's still satisfying for me. So whatever your situation is, just saying, do I want to change that? Am I satisfied with that? Do I feel in this self-therapy, getting organized thing, do I feel like that is enough in this particular module? Body is a really interesting thing that we do here in the upper right quadrant, the external physical reality. The claim here is that we have 3 bodies. One is this physical stuff that you can, you prick me and I bleed. It takes up space. It has an electric charge. Okay. 2 is our subtle body. That is the felt experience of our body, our energy centers, what we would learn about in Tai Chi or Qigong. I don't know how to say that, or yoga. And this is physically real because the injunction here, right, is you can do these practices and you can find that these benefits actually happen. So there's a physical reality to this, and it's energetic, but we're not talking about physical energy. We're talking about this consciousness where consciousness meets physicality, where my will exists, where my attention exists, where I can visualize. All we have of our body really is a visualization. When I close my eyes and I experience my body, this is my subtle body. This is my subtle realm. This is this thing that I'm imagining into being right now, and I actually have control and power here in altering what that is. So a lot of our subtle body practices, this is in the body module even, a lot of these are to do with breath work, experiencing ourselves as the breath, as this movement through energy, as channeling various levels of our energy. I've taught the chakras here a lot. In the book, it's simplified to head, heart, and hara, which is sort of your gut and your lower chakras. So you can kind of, as you breathe, you can kind of like feel that energy coming from the front, through head, heart, hara, breathing out through the back of the spine, rising to the air around you, right? This is like a condensation of so many different breathwork practices. And you experience that flow in every moment. This is your subtle body, enacting. You can do all the chakras, you can do more chakras, but really you can do just these 3. And bringing air and attention and awareness in each of these 3 centers, you'll pretty much immediately feel a difference in your energy, your consciousness as experienced as embodiment. And then finally, the causal body is that witnessing awareness. It's this whole thing, the simple feeling of being, the truth about you, your original face, the thing that's still there when you're fully asleep, not even dreaming, still there. When someone kicks you, you wake up. Who was there to wake up? Your true self that existed before time began. It's always there, forever. It's your causal body. It's there right now. It's never gone. It's always here. So that's at the start of this episode, I invited us to touch base with that, because in its purest essence as enlightened consciousness, this is very difficult to access and maintain. But part of it is what we call this perfect practice, which is that since this is so native and fundamental to us, and it is the nature of reality, that we are this non-dual simple feeling of being, this causal body, this causal consciousness first before anything else. It's actually very, very easy to get there if you can just get out of the way. This is the perfect practice. It just goes straight to it. You're enlightened right now. You are the deity. Then we get into the inquiry. Why did that break? Why did I stop doing that? What led me away from that? Where is my doubt coming from? Why do I stop being pure consciousness and descend into being subtle and gross as a person? The body module can be done as all 3 bodies. Touch in with the causal, do a subtle practice, and then with those activated and engaged and acknowledged, do your weightlifting or your aerobics or your skiing or whatever as all three bodies at once, so fully embodied, and you'll get better results out of your practice. That's the body module. And then the mind module in this case is basically learning integral theory. Whether that's reading these Ken Wilber books about integral theory, or whether that's pursuing your own sort of scholarship within a religious tradition, or going to college, reading books about self-help, transformation, New Age spirituality, your particular kind of spirituality, Buddhism, spiritual practice, philosophy, psychology for sure. So anything in that kind of constellation, which actually is everything, but fulfilling your integral knowledge. So it would start with understanding integral theory, and then those are the bones, and then you flesh it out with, what do I need to know? So like, for example, I am a coder, I'm an economist, I'm a musician, I'm an artist, I'm an influencer, I'm a yoga guy. I have all these primary passions. Those are really big passions that I have. So my mind module might be to include, okay, actually, I have not done a whole lot of economics in recent times. I kind of, after college, I read the pop econ book here and there, but I would like to actually do, more of that, include economic analysis maybe in my coding projects, maybe read a periodical about economics, because it is a fascinating topic for me still, even though I never, got employed in it. As a yoga guy, maybe supplement my practice a little more. I've been working on my Warrior series. It's a really basic series that everyone knows, but weirdly, I've just never really gotten the hang of Warrior. So I've been working on that a lot lately. Also my Scorpion pose, right? So your mind module might be like what I'm doing here, reading Ken Wilber books, doing book reports on them. That's really solid work. Maybe it's watching Unthink Me. That's fine. That's great for increasing your knowledge of integral theory. And then how you would flesh that out would be whatever you choose, whatever you deem to be a continuation of that. Being sure to read lots of books about topics that you're passionate about. So it could really be anything you want, just as long as it's guided by integral theory. The spirit module deals specifically with that spirituality, whatever it is for you. So if that's psychedelics, then research psychedelics, do more psychedelics, include that in your practice. Try to challenge yourself to do more and more therapeutic styles of set and setting. Maybe that is meditative for you, so actually make sure you have a consistent daily practice, or you attend group things that you find to be constructive, maybe ecstatic dance, maybe this means for you church and group community stuff, or Sangha stuff. Maybe this means doing more mind-body practices, maybe studying the sutras or the books that go with your religious convictions or spiritual beliefs. So spirit line can be anything, whether that's subtle work or causal work, or even just here in the gross realm, making sure you're a more like morally sound, whether you're, working at a spiritual level in the flow, getting in the flow. The shadow module, really interesting. So this is primary, right? One of the primary things to work on in integral: mind, body, spirit, shadow, and other. So shadow is really big. And this is conventional therapy. This is alternative therapy. This is building through relationships. This is personal growth on any level. Recognizing where you get hung up, where you're neurotic or even pathological, where things that people say about you, what's wrong with Adam? What's his problem? So as you learn that about yourself, we need to know, like, okay, in order for me to grow, I have to understand what's creating this problem, this hang up, this fixation on something, this allergy to something, this inability to come out, this passionate obsession with something that's distracting or limiting, this fetish, just some sort of stickiness. I'm not just flowing freely. I'm not just like safe and cool and good. So this is shadow stuff, and this is the same shadow Jung's talking about. We've talked about it a lot on this channel. The process that's recommended here is the 3-2-1 shadow work. Third person, second person, first person. I just did a huge, long discussion of that. Maybe it's good, maybe it's silly. But I tried to do some of that actually applied in practice in my last video. So I won't go into that too deeply here. But if you want to try this at home, just think about, when someone says something, or maybe dream material, or just something that's kind of sticking in your mind, some event, something your boss said to you, something your partner said to you, something your parent said to you, your child said to you, and it really just grinds your gears, or maybe you can't get over it, how good it makes you feel, or how addicted you are to it. Well, start out just noticing it in the third person. Like, what is the fact that I'm responding to here? What is happening? And the second person, have a little dialogue with it as yourself and as that embodied, that thing that you've now isolated as a third person thing. Now, have a little discussion with it, and then bring it into the first person. Allow it to be the truth. Allow it to be who you actually are. Yes, I am jealous. Yes, I am angry. I am resentful. And there's a sort of switcheroo that happens here, because when you take ownership of the projected or neglected or denied emotion, it kind of empowers you a little bit. Like, yeah, I do hate that, actually. No wonder I was so afraid of this person. I hate them. No wonder I got into this fight or flight response. What they said really bothers me. If I can actually own that and not pretend I'm not an angry person, I'm not resentful, I like that person, but just be honest with myself, that'll allow me to engage them in that moment and say, no, like, listen, this is what you just said and how I understood it. And like, are you serious? Like, is that really what you think? As you do that more, as you face people and things more and challenge them more, you'll find actually that you can have much more respectful exchanges and much more real exchanges. So it's not like the resentment is used to like punish or harm. It's like you recognize your resentment, you call it out in the open, you explain, instead of trying to like win an argument or something, just kind of back up and say like, whoa, you're actually saying this, is that right? Is that what you're really saying? And boy, that winds me up quite a bit. That makes me like, it's really very distasteful to me. It's so different than how we typically respond to things. We try to win these kind of like tit for tat, logical, petty one-upmanship arguments, but that just kind of alienates you more. It's not legit. It's not authentic. So that's just a little bit on shadow work. The classic way to do it is conventional therapy, right? That's how we do it in today's world. If you don't have another way that seems to be working for you, that's a totally legit way to go about it. And now I want to talk about the other module, or the extra, right? This is kind of surprising, because this is where we include all that kind of first tier stuff that really is the bulk of our life. Our relationships, our work, career work. That's like a huge part of our life, but it's not really something that integral theory covers. Your work should be informed by integral theory. Hopefully you can find a more integral expression of yourself in career, but what you do at your job is essentially not going to change much at first. This is a developmental process. So it isn't really the job of your integral life practice to work on your job. This is kind of what you're doing outside of your job. And same deal with relationships, like whatever your relationship is, sex is like another module too, or just romantic relationships. These are kind of on their own scale and kind of more down to your own values and how you want to practice them. Mind, body, spirit, and shadow are the things that integral really helps us with in our life practice. The other is more like what we're already up to anyways. So that's kind of really important to get, because I think this is an important answer to a lot of people asking what to do with this knowledge. So going into the mind module a little bit. So about a quarter of the book is, as always, an introduction to integral theory. So it's a really quick rundown on the integral map, levels, explaining how this all works, how it came to be. There's a quote by Einstein, which I've been quoting a lot and I love. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. Albert Einstein. Level of consciousness. Albert Einstein. Isn't that crazy? Right? So this stuff might be seeming like it's coming out of nowhere, but even in the case of like physics, we have this idea of levels of consciousness. Isn't that interesting? Like relativity is itself kind of a level of consciousness. It's breaking down, it's deconstructing mechanistic explanations for physical reality. Now, lines of development, right? Lines is often neglected here. These are the parts of yourself, the intelligences that go through levels. So we think of levels as like you, like one thing, but they're not. They're different parts of you go through these. So these are the lines that are listed for an integral psychograph in this book. Cognition, needs, self-identity, values, emotions, aesthetics, morals, interpersonal relating, kinesthetic, and spirituality. So if you ever want that breakdown of like what are the lines, that's kind of it. Like that's one way of doing it. That's your D&D stat sheet for today. You can change that if you want. You can bring in other researchers, whatever. But this is sort of one way of doing lines. Cognitive line, in integral theory, we like to say it's necessary but not sufficient for other growth. So if you just aren't smart enough, whatever, you can't really grow other lines beyond what you're smart enough to comprehend or what you're capable of comprehending or what you'll allow yourself to comprehend. In my own opinion, maybe I'll find this in an integral theory book somewhere, I believe that there are some things like physical to your brain or to your wiring or to your chemistry, or you got kicked by a mule, or you have some genetic thing that make you have like low intelligence. Like there's just no way around, that. Maybe your intelligence goes in a different direction and you're intelligent in a different way, but that core cognitive intelligence is low because of reason, right? For everyone else, I honestly, truly believe that we are extremely gifted geniuses, all of us, just every person, and even that person that is maybe something is slightly wrong with their physical brain or their whatever. I think that we have so much untapped intelligence. There's that thing about people use 10% of their brain, whatever. That's not my claim. What I'm saying is that you use no percent of your potential, the intelligence that you could have, by allowing yourself, giving yourself permission or having permission in your conditions to pursue more intelligence, to open-mindedness. It's been pointed out, openness, the big five trait of openness is pretty much synonymous ultimately with intelligence. Over time, the trait of openness creates intelligence. So just allowing yourself, considering yourself an intelligent person, for example, makes you an intelligent person because you do the sorts of things that intelligent people do, which is learning, growing, reading, expanding your mind, exposing yourself to new information. So necessary but not sufficient. So that's the cognitive line is very important. That's what I call think, feel, do, right? Self-related lines, there's a bunch of different ones because there's a bunch of different people researching this. Your ego level, your needs level, your moral level, self-identity, what you think you are, what Evan calls affinity, what you have affinity as, your values, that's the spiral dynamics line. These are all things, how you would describe yourself, what you think is important, who you think you are exactly, who am I, what should I do. Talent lines. All right, so these are more like your Howard Gardner multiple intelligences: musical, visuospatial, mathematical, kinesthetic. So these lines are important and they bleed over a little bit, but they're kind of like special, like my chess line. How good am I at chess? Well, that makes me maybe good at some sorts of like logical things. I might be better at coding. I might be better at warfare maybe or something. But it's really just being good at chess. And you can totally hyperfixate on that as a savant, and you can be extraordinarily good on that line, maybe take it to the highest level, but it is just one thing. These are sort of talent lines. Other important lines may be less clear to us at this juncture how important they are or how fundamental they are to the self, but spiritual, aesthetic, so like the arts, emotional, psychosexual, interpersonal. So these are very important lines that they're kind of special in their own way. They're certainly things that go through levels, but it's unclear how fundamental they are to the person or what the interplay is. So still sticking with the mind module, what's contained in this book is like mental training material. Almost every kind of integral noted fallacy, so many of them are absolutisms, some sort of absolute reductionism fallacy. So it may be that a particular quadrant is fundamental. In the case of idealism, the upper left quadrant is fundamental and everything else flows from that. Scientism, the upper right, what it can be known through measurement and experimentation is all there is. Everything else could be assumed from there. It's a absolutist fallacy, only the upper right. Postmodernism, like lower left fundamentalism, that everything that is known as a social construction is just what we've culturally agreed to be true. And then lower right absolutism systems, that this is all just a system producing the illusion of us, and the illusion of everything is just a system, right? So every quadrant can become like an absolutist fallacy. Line absolutism, right? In our approach to culture, you can see this as just like IQ. We measure IQ, that's how smart you are. Well, there's all these other different kinds of intelligence, but all we care about is this one that gets you to pass the tests and be considered a smart person by our standards, right? Even if you're the best painter who ever lived and you have an IQ of like 110, 105, whatever, we don't measure that with IQ. So you're stupid, but you're just good at art, weirdly. Lines absolutism would be there's only one kind of development that I care about, being physically strongest. That's all that matters, right? Levels absolutism is what you see in the first tier, what you see in the world. There aren't levels. I'm right. Me and my people that believe the same thing as me are right. There are no levels of consciousness. You develop up to where I am, and then I teach you how to get to my level. And that's, once you're at my level, you're done. You're an adult. That's levels absolutism. And where I think you really see that today is, I think that a lot of people, some of the best arguments against integral theory, you can see them in the comments. You done at Orange. Society's done at Orange. I'm done at Orange. Culture was done at Orange. Everything else is just a joke. It's not actual development. So that's a form of levels fundamentalist absolutism. Just Orange is the end. There's no more levels. Even though you can see that there's other levels. I don't like those, so they're not levels anymore. I don't consider them that. States. This is, of course, the nature of mainstream society in general. My state is what reality is. My state is reality. Because I'm not aware of subtle states, causal states, non-dual states, those don't exist. Gross is reality. That's state absolutism. So as I said before, reading through this book, I was really amazed how much I kind of already was doing the integral life practice methodology in my own life, just because I'm aware of integral theory. You kind of do this on your own. You organize your life in this way. I actually literally like the what they propose that you do is kind of, I've already implemented that without having read this book or knowing what's in it. And likewise, it's can be kind of a dry read, because if you're already doing this whole integral life practice on your own, it's just kind of like, it's more just to recognize oh, cool, I was on the right page there with most of this stuff. Maybe a little bit of it was pretty helpful to me. Most of the stuff I'm talking about is stuff that kind of came out to me as relevant and kind of progressive to my own understanding of this. There's quite a few breathwork practices and centering on the breath practices outlined in the book, which was really interesting. I won't go through them with you here. I at that point, I'm kind of stealing too much, I think, from the book. So this is important because that level 8, let's say, that turquoise holistic centaur, right? The mind-body, mind-body is my nature at level 8. So I'm not yet all consciousness. I'm not yet the full psyche, but I'm recognizing that the interplay between what I consider my body and what I consider my mind is kind of where I live. It's kind of what I actually am. And this can feel like a pretty big jailbreak from how we conceptualize our existence prior. Breath work is really essential to this, to kind of always be plugged in with your breath and to realize how much your breath generates states of consciousness, generates physical sensations, and how much your experience of life is kind of this story of the breath, this story of a circulation and the experience of being not just your mental process, but a mental process which is propagated by a physical process. In the Zen ox herding pictures, this is, depicted as the relationship between the man and the ox, whether it's you're fighting against it, dragging it around, whipping it, beating it, yelling at it, or you're best buds, or you're just totally on the level together, or you don't even see it as two different things. This is the mind body, the centaur, right? It's a horse ass with a human on it. Centaur, mind body. This is kind of where we find ourselves, and this is where awakening is imminent from the mind-body perspective. This is where we've kind of gotten through the story that's presented by our society, and we're ready as philosophical existential beings. We're ready to awaken to higher, deeper, wider realities in states of consciousness, transcendence. Most practitioners in the sense of spiritual practice and integral life practice you will get to a point where this is the bridge to cross. This is where we have to find ourselves, integrating the bodily existence, the id, with the ego, the mental process, the superego, the ideal self, integrating those things into a coherent being, not just the id squirts out when it has to, the ego squirts out when it has to, right? But it's like we're all playing ball together, we're on a team. The mind-body, the centaur, that's the gateway to vision logic. So let's do one breathing practice. I don't know whether people who are fond of this channel like practice stuff. I'm finding they kind of don't, but I want to try one from the book here, at the risk of getting sued. The microcosmic orbit, just a really simple, condensated practice that we can do, a meditation on the breath. Sit in a comfortable position, relax your body, calm your mind, and regulate your breath. Notice your bodily sensations. Feel the weight of your body in your seat and the contact of your feet on the ground. Bring your attention to the present moment. Turn your attention inward and lower your gaze. As you breathe through the nose, feel, open to, and commune with the all-pervading energy within and surrounding you, especially above your head. Visualize an especially intense concentration of energy above your head. Imagine that the top of your head is a blooming lotus flower, soaking up the light that's always falling upon you. As you inhale, bring your energy and focus down to the area between and behind your eyebrows, and draw energy forward through this third eye. Press your tongue against the roof of your mouth behind your front teeth to enable more energy to circulate, and let your energy sink down through the palate and tongue into your throat to the heart. Move your breath down further and deeper within the body, about 2 finger widths below the navel, until you feel a concentrated pocket of energy glowing there, a point of golden light, clear, bright, warm, and pure. Allow your breath to naturally become lighter and subtler. When the feeling of energy in your navel is stable and full, use your mind to guide this energy down into the genitals, the perineum, and then back toward your tailbone. Steadily visualize this energy as a small snake gradually passing through the tailbone. Now complete the second half of the orbit by exhaling and visualizing the energy moving up the back of your body to where the ribs meet the spine, then right on up the spine to the back of the head. Imagine energy traveling up your spine to the center and top of your head and even above the head. Begin another cycle, breathing in as the energy moves down the front channel from the top of your head to your perineum, and breathing out as the energy moves up the back channel from the perineum to the back of your head. Repeat for as many repetitions as you feel comfortable. So this is a very, very simple breathwork practice. It's sort of a base Kundalini yoga breathing exercise, and this is how we can become more and more in touch with our subtle being. And if you're unclear on what to do when you meditate, try this out. Try doing this a little bit, or try doing this to ground yourself, get activated before any sort of exercise or activity or engagement that you may have. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the spirit module. In Japanese Zen, powerful glimpses of freedom are called kensho. More lasting awakening is called satori. In Sanskrit, practice is called sadhana. It can be said that kensho begets sadhana, and sadhana, over time, begets more kenshos. Many kenshos beget satori and freedom. So these are, this is two Eastern ideas, but the idea is there's sort of a give and take between an awakening realization and a spiritual practice and an ultimate flowering as enlightenment. So whatever one might come first, one might come second, in your case, but in general, these things kind of cross-feed: awakening, practice, enlightenment. It could even happen that you have a spontaneous enlightening experience, and then as it goes away, because it was only a state, now you're like, whoa, how do I even have, I need to practice, I need to find a way to induce awakening. It can happen in any order, but Ken shows sadhana, satori, 3 different ways to discuss the enlightenment topic, spirit module. Meditative traditions often distinguish between concentration practice, which builds the necessary attention muscles required to sustain focused attention, and awareness practice, which develops the inner spaciousness necessary to release attention into expanded, subtle, and/or formless causal states. Both of these practices free attention from its usual fixation on the discursive mind. So we need to learn how to concentrate in general, and then we also need to develop awareness. So they're kind of 2 different things, concentration and awareness. You could just do one or the other, but to really understand the difference helps your meditation greatly to understand like what you need to work on, or what to touch base with. And then so it talks a bit here about what I've been calling, and what it calls first, second, and third person versions of spirit. In our Eastern practices, it's all the I am, it's the consciousness thing, it's first person. For atheists and people who consider themselves, spiritual but not religious, it's kind of the third person spirit, just that this whole thing is kind of a miracle. It's amazing, appreciating the system of nature and what has produced us here. Second person, though, is the one that I've become more fixated on recently because it's so kind of alien to me. The spirit as second person, as other to me. So here we can talk about integral communion. From the book, to practice integral communion is to open your whole body, gross, subtle, and causal, into communion with the universal mystery of existence as one's most intimate beloved. Can you believe that? It involves unkinking the physical body, freeing the feeling breath, opening the emotions, and turning them toward the beloved. That almost sounds like think, feel, do, right? Unkinking the physical, freeing the feeling breath, opening the emotions, and turning toward the beloved. Romantically in love with the universe. Even if you've never considered it before, your relationship with spirit must be one of love. After all, spirit or God is love. What is it to open to a personal meeting with love itself, the very heart that expresses itself in your heart and every heart? It's a big heart there. A lot of us here think of this as a mental activity, as knowledge, as developing wisdom, a thought thing, a understanding, comprehension thing. But part of it is your opening of your love, your capacity for feeling this, for letting go of your isolated selfhood, your constrictions, letting yourself flow freely as a being of love and compassion. That is absolutely what we're talking about here. It goes hand in hand with the big mind, with the big brain, the transcendence. Devotion requires sincerity. A threshold must be crossed for devotion to be authentic. You must fall in love with existence itself, which can mean God, spirit, suchness, the mystery of being, or the source of grace. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, see, I just read this book and they're saying the same crap that I was saying. Fall in love with existence itself, right there in the text, right? Romantically in love with the universe. Until that threshold has been crossed, attempts at devotion tend to be slightly forced or self-indulgent. 2 simultaneous insights. 1, understanding selfishness is a dead end. And 2, noticing and awakening to the transcendental, sacred, beneficent, and graceful nature of existence. After these insights, the obvious stands forth. Every moment of conscious life, especially this one, is a profound and wondrous gift. And this is so funny. This is a thing that I kept coming back to in my last relationship, was just to say that this relationship, what we have is it's just a gift. That's how we should treat it. That's how we should understand it. That's how we move forward. It's a gift. It's not, you don't have to take it. And it is a lot of work, but it's life. And all of our close relationships are truly just a gift, and they need to be understood as such. To do with as you please. It's disgraceful to see it as anything else besides just simply a gift. And in that relationship, that was really the attitude that I feel like I held the whole time, was just to relish it, appreciate it, understand it to be a gift that can be taken away at any time. That the time we have together is just a wondrous gift, and to be grateful for it. And I hope that I've managed to maintain that all throughout, whether I'm talking about that relationship or this life. Now back to the text. When that feeling is understood, the heart opens naturally and authentically. Such gratitude is self-validating and obviously appropriate. It is self-evidently sane, while the absence of gratitude is not. Isn't that beautiful? It's sane to be grateful. I'm reading a lot of text from the book. These are just selections that I think are relevant. I'm sorry if this is just like kind of me stealing content. I'm not trying to do that, but religion is considered theistic when it presumes a relationship with God or multiple gods. As we awaken beyond mythic conceptions of God, belief in an objectified God falls away. So post-Amber meme. Often at this point, people lose touch with the feeling of devotion altogether, right? So this is why, are all orange meme people atheists? No, but they might feel like atheists. But we don't have to lose a sense of devotion as we grow beyond magical and mythical thinking. And this is where I apologize to my Christian audience for calling myself the devil Satan, but I'm not taking it back. I am. We have to get over magical and mythical thinking in order to move forward together. And we can still do all the same prayer and worship. We can't do membership, mythical, magical thinking. This is a religion of consciousness, awareness, insight. It's a higher level version of religion, rational and post-rational. A sense of devotion, absolutely. A sense of brotherhood, community, absolutely. A higher level devotional practice is still possible. We can always relate to God as our ultimate beloved, and even as the non-objectified mystery beyond all perspectives. As we climb the ladder of development, this can naturally blossom. And what we started out with here, pure consciousness, perfect practice. What breaks it? And we can do our 3-2-1 shadow process on that itself. If a particular person or situation with an emotional charge keeps arising in meditation, you can face it. I guess it'd be face it, talk to it, be it. 3-2-1. Face it, talk to it, be it. Using 3-2-1 shadow. Not just in everyday life, but also in meditation. For a truly integral spirituality, expression, practice, selfhood, we can do our first person spirit relationship as meditation. We can do our second person relationship with spirit as prayer and communion. Some of these exercises in the subtle and just in relationship to the cosmos, this thing that's happening, our life experience. And thirdly, in the third person, contemplation. Just look at this great gift, this great miracle. So three different conjugations of a fundamentally spiritual attitude, no matter what we're talking about, yoga, Zen, Islam. As long as we're beyond magical and mythical fixation, this can apply to any religion. They're fundamentally similar, and we're saying the same thing here. Getting into the other modules now, there's a bit about all the sort of nuts and bolts, and it's kind of cursory because again, this isn't really the focus here. We're working on the self work and the spiritual work and the integral theory, knowledge, and community as our integral life practice, and then everything that we do other than that is kind of other, extra, right? What do you think you need to work on? But one of the modules that was more interesting was ethics, ethical module. Lifeboat problem, right? You have a lifeboat, there's 10 people in it, but only 7 are going to make it. So we have to make choices right now. Who do you save? The old person, the young person, the person who's demonstrably done bad things to get here, the person who's done only good things, a person with a great, maybe they're a trauma surgeon, they have a great capacity to help others, versus someone who doesn't have much, someone who's primarily dependent, someone who is more vulnerable versus someone who's stronger, like which one of those is the bad one? This is very much like James and my discussion about which animal is more ethical to kill. How do you form a hierarchy of meat ethics or animal killing ethics? These are truly our ethical, moral problems that we're faced with daily if we're doing work in this world, that we have to make these sorts of decisions, or just in our family life, our home life. Integral's handling of this in this book, the basic moral intuition is to protect and promote the greatest depth for the greatest span. Greatest depth for the greatest span. Depth refers to level of development. A baboon is deeper than a ladybug, which in turn deeper than an amoeba. So this is what I was saying. Even in the third grade, I kind of had this intuition. Depth is important in this consideration. A baboon is deeper than a ladybug. It's at a higher level. Depth or a higher level. Grass is better to kill than a whale because the whale is deeper, further along the developmental spiral, higher up in levels. So that's depth. Span refers to the number of beings affected, regardless of level. So 20 zillion ants versus one human, right? As in the utilitarian principle of the greatest good for the greatest number. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So that's just straight up communism. The important value of this utilitarian formulation, which stems from an orange attitude of consciousness. So a utilitarian principle, the greatest good for the greatest number, orange altitude of consciousness, utilitarian, it is inherently egalitarian. It does not recognize depth. The problem is that it completely leaves out the depth dimension. So in the lifeboat problem, it's just a matter of raw numbers. It doesn't matter who's who. It doesn't matter if one of them is the devil Satan and another one is a good person. If one of them is culturally important, one of them is not. If one of them is handicapped, one of them is an Olympic athlete. I'm not making these choices for you. I'm just saying, these are factors people might consider in the lifeboat dilemma. There's a further breakdown, 3 different forms of value: ground value, intrinsic value, and relative value. Your ground value is that utilitarian value. It's that everyone, every sentience really is entitled to live. We all deserve to be here. We're compassionate to everyone ever. Just to be alive, you're worthy of this. So you have ground value. Intrinsic value is your developmental depth, how much you have worked to build your capital as a being, how much has been invested into you, how much love, education, possibly even money itself, how much has been invested into you, and how much capital do you present to the world? How much skill do you have? How much can you help others? That's your intrinsic value. Relative value is context specific. In the lifeboat dilemma, we're going to favor people who are stronger swimmers, people who are capable of helping in the problem more, and maybe relative to your own values. Maybe this person is the same religion as you. Maybe this person is someone that you personally like. Maybe one of them is a drug addict and you think that they deserve to die, or they're a criminal, something like that. That would be relative value. It's specific to the context. Maybe in America, in this society, we value wealth, influence, and fame. So these people would be considered relatively more value if they're more wealthy, more famous, and more influential. In our culture, those might be considered more relatively valuable people, whereas maybe in classical Indian culture, a spiritual leader would be, even if they had no money, nobody knew of them, and they weren't very influential, they were just kind of doing, that person might be considered extremely valuable by some people just because that's what they value more. Maybe in some cultures, a more humble person would be of the greatest value, the meek shall inherit the earth kind of philosophy. So about ready to wrap this up. Just if you have a desire to create your own integral life practice, or if you're already doing it and you want to kind of systematize it, I've given you the modules. The only other thing is just, create a statement of vision and purpose. What is it, brand yourself. What are you trying to do? Who am I? What should I do? What are my core values? I entered this process, said, I'm Unthink Me. I teach integral theory on the internet. My values are integrity, development, and spirituality. I've said that a few places. These came to me in a vision. I realized these are the things that I value most: integrity, development, and spirituality. And, what are you here to do? I'm a yoga guy, and I'm here to connect and to make this my life, because this is what I love. This is who I want to be. Begin the practice with the understanding that this is yours to create, and you can develop these modules in any way you want to become more the person that you want to be and to act out that vision and purpose. In my own system, my unlimited time calendar, I haven't told you about this, but I make periodic judgments, and this is what we're doing here. We're refining our vision and purpose. We're adjusting our modules. There's a big one every year, and every 45 days we make a new judgment to carry forward our quest and let it change, let it shape, let it develop. One more thing from the book that I've been harping on this whole time, not even knowing that it's an integral theory thing. Masculine and feminine self-compassion. The internalized parent has a mom and a dad. It's exactly what I've expressed in this show, but it was so interesting to see it coming out in the Integral Life Practice book as well, that this is not to say that your father was this way or that fathers need to be this way. That's not my hill to die on. I mean, look at me. But that in each of ourselves, there is a psychological process that's a masculine and feminine sort of parent figure. And the masculine is very like, go for it, do it, pushing you. You have these rights, you have these responsibilities. I'm going to be a little hard on you. I'm going to challenge you because I believe in you. I think you can do this. Feminine is more just like, it's okay. I accept you for who you are. You don't have to be big shit to me. I love you no matter what. I'm here for you when you need me, and I hope that you go off and do great things. But, whenever you're down and out, I'll always be here for you. To be in touch with both of those sides of ourselves is very necessary for growth. To have some degree of both of those forces, externally or internally, hopefully both, in our life, pushing us upward, up the levels to greater things, but also letting us be who we actually are in real life without any facade, without any compensation, without faking it. It's okay to be where you are. It's okay to be who you are. You were there. You saw the whole thing. You know what went down. Time to forgive yourself. Allow yourself permission to keep trying. Keep trying. Keep doing it. We need you here. We need you to be real. And we need to trust one another if we're to make it out of our conundrums. And the way to build that trust, it starts inside. It starts with acceptance and challenge in equal measure. It's a good partnership between those masculine and feminine, classically, energies, the yin and yang. It's how we grow. It's eros, it's love. I'm not saying you got to play one role or the other. You got to be one role or the other. You got to believe in one role. It's really got to be both. And if you are one, then you need to seek balance externally or internally from the other. I have 3 more Ken Wilber books that I'm going to read and report to you on, and I might go back and read ones that I've already read, but it's mostly just important for my own mind module for me to get more versed and make sure I'm up to speed with Ken Wilber and all of his books, so that when he comes on the show and we have our amazing interview, I'll be up to speed. I'll be an armchair expert on the integral theory. I mentioned in the last video too, I've been feeling low in self-confidence. I've had a little bit of physical illness. It's been a tough winter. I'm not complaining, not at all complaining. I'm just saying the energy level's been low. It's been a little more difficult for me to rally my senses. So not at all saying to go easy on me or anything like that. I'm just sharing with you if I feel a little bit depleted to you. It's true, I've had more energy at other times. Throughout the show, I had a kind of fire under my seat, and right now I'm a little more swampy feeling. This will be an opportunity for us to kind of hunker down around the fire and maybe go to more intimate places. Maybe I'm not trying as hard to be funny or entertaining, and I'm just getting better and better at learning how to interface with you and share my true self with integrity in ways that I've never been able to do before. So I'm very, very proud of what this is. Love you truly. Again, whether I'm talking to the universe or the fans or myself. whoever's watching, whoever's paying attention, whoever's being here with me. Gratitude. This is a gift. Namaste. Spirit. Spirit to spirit, I love you. Let's create this new future together. Let's do it right now. We're creating the future. We create the future. So let's rock, baby. It is past 1 o'clock again.